He laughed. Not a kind laugh, not the kind that warms a room, but the sharp, cracking sound of someone certain they've caught a lie. The kind of laugh that makes everyone else go silent. The girl who stood before him froze. Her name was Lena Brooks, 12 years old, freckles fading under the harsh lights of a Target in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Her hand still clutched a pair of running shoes, but her voice had vanished. A minute ago she'd just been talking, happy, unguarded, ordinary. Now her world had gone still. It started like nothing. Lena and her best friend Tara were walking down the shoe aisle, giggling about school, sneakers, and which flavor of ice cream was superior, cookie dough or mint chip. Lena had just said something that made Tara stop in her tracks. "My mom can't pick me up yet," Lena said casually, tapping her chin with the box lid. "She's still at Camp Lejeune finishing her drill." "She's a combat commander." Tara's eyebrows jumped. "Wait, your mom's in the military? Like real combat?" Lena smiled. That proud, innocent kind of smile kids wear when they speak the truth. "Yeah, Captain Dana Brooks. She's been overseas a lot." It should have been an ordinary moment. Two kids talking big about their parents. Nothing more. But that was before the off-duty officer 2 aisles over decided to turn the moment into a spectacle. "Combat commander?" His voice sliced through the hum of the store like glass. A laugh followed, harsh, disbelieving. "Oh, come on, kid. You expect anyone to buy that?" Every head turned. Even the store clerk behind the register looked up. The man stepped closer. He wore jeans, a leather belt with a badge clipped to it, and a smugness that arrived before his words. His name was Officer Dale Mercer, 20 years in uniform, a habit of assuming he'd already seen the truth of the world, and an ego to match. "You're telling me your mom runs combat units?" He scoffed. "Let me guess, she's also a secret agent, huh?" The way he said secret agent made a few shoppers snicker. Lena's grip tightened around the shoebox. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "She really does," Tara said softly. Sweetheart," Mercer interrupted. "I've been in law enforcement 2 decades. I've seen real soldiers, real commanders. Trust me, no one like your mom is running the battlefield. That no one like your mom hung in the air." It wasn't what he said, and it was how he said it. The crowd didn't move, but something inside Lena did. Her stomach turned cold. Her face burned hot. A woman nearby pushed her cart slower, pretending to browse. A teenage boy stopped tying his sneakers to watch. And in the middle of all those eyes, Lena's small voice cracked. "You don't know her." Mercer smirked, leaning against the display rack as if he had all day to crush a child's pride. Sure. My son used to say I was Batman. Kids make things up. That's what you do, you dream." Another short, sharp laugh. Lena blinked hard. Her throat stung. Tara whispered, "Ignore him." But ignoring wasn't possible. Not when her truth was being trampled in front of strangers. She took a step back, heart pounding. "It's true," she whispered again. The officer's grin widened. "Of course it is, kiddo. And maybe I'm the president while we're at it." He chuckled again, loud enough to echo. People smiled awkwardly but said nothing. No one defended her. Lena swallowed hard. Her chest rose and fell. She didn't understand why the man's words cut so deep. Only that something in them told her he didn't see her mom the way she did. He didn't believe because he didn't want to believe. "Tell you what," Mercer said, flashing his badge like a joke. "If your mom's really a combat commander, maybe she should stop by the station sometime. We could use a good laugh." The laughter this time came from a few corners. Low. Uneasy. The kind people hide behind embarrassment. Lena's eyes filled, but she refused to let tears fall. She remembered her mom's voice from a letter she'd once read aloud. "Courage, sweetheart, isn't about being loud. It's about standing tall when the world tries to shrink you." But standing tall felt impossible when every stranger in the store seemed to be shrinking her. Her hands trembled. She set the shoes back on the shelf. The scrape of cardboard against metal was louder than anything she'd ever heard. "You're wrong," Lena said quietly. "I've been wrong before," Mercer said with mock sympathy. "But never about something this funny." He laughed again, and that was when the whispering started. 2 women near the checkout shook their heads. A man muttered, "Why's he going after a kid?" But no one said it loud enough to matter. Lena stared at the tiled floor. She wished she could disappear. If she could have taken her words back, she would have. But she couldn't. The truth was already out, and she'd never been more alone with it. Yet, Even as her voice broke under the weight of humiliation, help was closer than she could imagine. Because at that exact moment, Captain Dana Brooks, still in uniform, was walking through the mall's sliding doors, heading straight for the same store where her daughter was learning what silence feels like. And with every step she took, the air in that Target was about to change forever. The sliding glass doors parted with a hiss. Boots struck the tile, slow, deliberate, certain. Each step echoed through the air like a countdown to justice. Captain Dana Brooks didn't walk like someone who needed to prove herself. She moved with quiet authority, the kind that didn't ask for attention but took it the moment she appeared. Her uniform was crisp, her posture unwavering, her expression unreadable. She'd just come from Camp Lejeune after a long training drill. The drive home should have been simple. But when she'd texted her daughter and got no response, something had tugged at her. A mother's instinct. So she stopped by the mall. Now inside the Target, people were whispering. And though Dana didn't yet know why, she could feel it. That strange tension that fills a room right before truth makes itself known. Back in the shoe aisle, Lena's heartbeat thudded in her ears. She could barely breathe. Officer Mercer leaned closer, his tone dipping just enough to sound almost kind, but every word sharpened like a blade. "You know, sweetheart," he said softly, "there's no shame in wanting to be proud of your mom, but making up stories won't help you. People will laugh," he smirked. "And out here, people aren't always nice about it." Tara's small voice broke the air. "She's not lying." Mercer turned toward her. "And you'd know, huh? What? You two have tea parties and trade war stories?" He chuckled again, that same cruel laugh that had turned the aisle into a stage. A few shoppers exchanged uncomfortable looks. But still no one spoke up. Lena's fist tightened. She wanted to scream that her mom was real, that her medals weren't toys, that her stories weren't bedtime fantasies, but the words tangled behind her teeth. And then it happened. A sound cut through the space. Boots, steady and rhythmic. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Captain Dana Brooks rounded the corner. Every detail of her presence, from the polished brass nameplate to the faint dust on her boots, commanded attention. Mercer didn't notice her at first. He was too busy talking. "See, kid, that's what happens when you grow up believing fairy tales. They sound nice, but they're not real." "They're real," Lena said, her voice barely a whisper. Mercer shook his head and gave a dismissive wave. "Sure. And next you'll tell me she parachuted out of a plane this morning." "Close," said a calm voice behind him. The officer turned, and for the first time that day, he didn't have a comeback ready. Captain Dana Brooks stood only a few steps away, her uniform bearing the insignia of a U.S. Marine combat commander. Her dark eyes locked on his, steady and unflinching. The color drained from his face. "Mom," Lena whispered, voice cracking. Dana didn't look away from Mercer. "What's going on here?" Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried, cutting through the silence, through every ounce of tension hanging in the air. Mercer cleared his throat, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Evening, ma'am. Just a little misunderstanding. Kids like to what?" Dana interrupted, still calm. "Tell the truth?" The aisle went completely quiet. The shoppers who had been pretending to browse now stood frozen, their gazes flicking between the officer and the uniformed woman before him. Lena stared at her mother, caught between relief and awe. "He said I made it up," Lena whispered. He laughed. Mercer tried to laugh again, but this time it sounded nervous, uncertain. "I was just teasing. Didn't mean anything by it." Dana's eyes narrowed. "You mocked my daughter in public, and you think that means nothing." Her tone didn't rise, but every syllable carried weight, the kind that made people listen. Mercer shifted. "Now hold on, ma'am. I didn't mock. I just thought you knew what someone like me looks like." She finished. "Tell me, officer, what exactly did you think you knew?" Her words hit him like a slap that didn't need to touch skin. He stammered. "Look, I just didn't expect what?" Dana's voice sharpened slightly. "That a woman could hold rank? That a mother could command soldiers? Or that a black woman could do both?" The question hung heavy in the air. Someone near the registers whispered, "She said it." Another murmured, "He's done for." Mercer's mouth opened, then closed. I never said that. You didn't have to, Dana replied, stepping closer. Your laugh said it for you. A ripple of quiet agreement passed through the crowd. Tara squeezed Lena's hand, whispering, "He looks scared now." Dana didn't break eye contact. You humiliated a child to protect your own bias. I've seen enemies on battlefields treat strangers with more respect. Mercer flinched. He was losing control of the room, and he knew it. Look, he said quickly, I was wrong, all right? Didn't mean to upset anyone. Dana's gaze didn't soften. Intent doesn't erase impact. The sentence landed hard. Even the background music seemed to fade. She looked at Lena, then back at him. You made my daughter feel small because her truth didn't fit into your imagination. Her voice dropped lower, sharper. But your imagination isn't the limit of what's real. Mercer's jaw clenched. He looked around, realizing the crowd wasn't on his side anymore. Phones were out, eyes were recording. His smirk, that armor of arrogance, and was gone. All right, Captain, he said quietly. You've made your point. No, Dana said, straightening. I've made a beginning. The room went utterly still. Even Lena, standing beside her, felt the air shift. Something bigger than the moment itself was unfolding. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that presses against the chest, demanding everyone listen. Captain Dana Brooks stood tall, her hand resting gently on her daughter's shoulder, but her gaze never left Officer Mercer. The fluorescent lights reflected faintly off her medals, each one earned through years of grit and sacrifice. For the first time in a long while, Mercer didn't know what to say. His confidence, the armor he'd worn so easily minutes ago, was cracking. Ma'am, he said finally, his voice tightening. I said I didn't mean anything by it. I was just laughing at a child who told the truth, Dana said, finishing the sentence for him. Do you have any idea how small that makes her feel? How easily words can bruise a child's pride. Mercer's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Around them, the crowd that had gathered leaned closer. A woman holding a basket of detergent stood motionless, eyes wide. Two teenagers whispered, She's destroying him. Dana took a slow breath, calm but firm. You wear a badge, she said quietly. That's supposed to mean something. Protection, dignity, fairness. But you used it to humiliate a 12-year-old. He shifted, his jaw clenching. Look, Captain, it's not that serious, Dana raised a brow. Not that serious. The way she said it froze him. To you, maybe it's a joke. But to her, it's a wound. And the thing about wounds, she continued, her voice steady, is that they heal slower when they're caused by the people who are supposed to protect. The sentence hung in the air. Someone in the back murmured, That's deep. Lena looked up at her mother, pride flickering through her fear. The woman beside the detergent whispered to her friend, She's the real deal. Mercer exhaled sharply, trying to reclaim some ground. I said I was sorry. What more do you want? Dana's gaze didn't move. An apology isn't about what you say. It's about what she deserves. She turned slightly, nodding toward her daughter. If you're truly sorry, tell her. Not me. The one you laughed at. The one you dismissed. Mercer blinked, his throat tightening. He looked at Lena. For a moment, he seemed smaller, stripped of authority. But when he spoke, his voice was low, reluctant. Sorry, kid. Dana's expression didn't change. Try again. The crowd reacted. A small ripple of murmurs, one man muttering, Good. Mercer swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. He cleared his throat. Lena, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have laughed. You told the truth, and I didn't believe you. That was wrong. The words came out halting, but they were real. For a brief second, you could see the sting of shame on his face. Lena's lips trembled. She didn't say anything, but she nodded slightly. Dana's eyes softened. Not with forgiveness, but with purpose. Thank you, she said. But we're not finished. Mercer blinked. Not finished? No, she said, turning her head just enough to let the crowd hear. Because this moment isn't just about one man and one child. It's about what happens every time someone decides their assumptions matter more than another person's truth. The words rolled through the store like thunder. Not loud, but undeniable. My daughter shouldn't have to defend my career to strangers, Dana continued. She shouldn't have to stand in tears while a man laughs at the idea that someone like me can lead soldiers. That someone like her can speak the truth. She paused, and the silence that followed was absolute. You think courage only belongs on the battlefield? You're wrong. Courage is here, in her, in every child who tells the truth even when the world laughs at them. A quiet voice from the back said, "Amen." Mercer rubbed the back of his neck. He couldn't meet her eyes anymore. He muttered, "I already said I was sorry." Dana looked back at him. "Then live like it." The sentence hit harder than anything before. She didn't raise her voice, didn't threaten him. But the power behind those words made the crowd hold its breath. "Next time you meet a child proud of her parent," Dana said softly, "don't strip that pride away to feed your doubt. Because once you take that from a kid, the belief that their truth matters, it's not easy to give back." Mercer's lips parted, but there was nothing left to argue. He knew it, everyone knew it. A hand clap echoed from near the self-checkout. Then another. And another. Applause spread through the store, quiet at first, then steady. Not mockery, not pity, respect. Mercer stood stiff, his face flushed red. He gave a curt nod, eyes down, and turned away, his steps heavy as he walked toward the exit. But Dana didn't watch him go. She looked at her daughter instead. "You all right, sweetheart?" Lena blinked back, tears smiling faintly through them. "Yeah, I hate that it happened." "I know," Dana said, smoothing her hair. "But sometimes moments like this teach louder than anything else ever could." The store began to move again, slowly, as though everyone had just woken from a spell. A man near the registers, the same one who'd whispered earlier, spoke up loud enough for her to hear. "Ma'am, thank you. I've got a little girl, too. I hope she grows up like yours." Dana gave a small nod. "Then teach her that truth doesn't need permission to exist." The man nodded back, eyes glistening. Lena felt something new blooming in her chest. Pride, fierce and untouchable. For the first time, she wasn't embarrassed. She was seen. A few more people approached quietly, one woman saying, "Thank you for your service, young, and for standing up for her." Dana smiled faintly. "We all serve in different ways. Today, my daughter served by standing tall." Lena looked down at her sneakers, realizing she no longer cared about buying them. What she'd just gained was worth far more than anything she could wear. The air in the store still shimmered with what had just happened. People pretended to browse again, but everyone's thoughts lingered on the woman in uniform and the girl beside her. Captain Dana Brooks stood still for a moment longer, letting the weight of silence settle before finally turning toward her daughter. Her voice softened, a complete contrast to the authority that had just filled the room. "You did good, Lena." Lena blinked, unsure whether to believe it. "I didn't do anything," she whispered. "You told the truth," Dana said gently. "And sometimes that's the hardest thing anyone can do." The girl swallowed, her throat tight. "He made me feel like I was lying, like I was stupid for even saying it." Dana crouched down so her eyes were level with her daughter's. "That's what fear does," she said softly. "It laughs when it doesn't understand. People laugh at what they don't expect to be true, especially when it challenges what they think they know." Tara stood a few feet away, eyes wide. She had never seen an adult handle something like that, calm, powerful, without yelling. She whispered, "He really didn't know who he was talking to." Dana smiled faintly. "It's not about who I am, sweetheart. It's about who he refused to see." As they started walking toward the checkout, the sound of the intercom announcement barely reached their ears. The world felt quieter now. The tension that had once made Lena want to disappear was replaced with something new. Strength, warm and glowing beneath her ribs. At the counter, a young cashier with trembling hands looked at Dana and said softly, "Ma'am, that was incredible. My mom served too. Not many people know what it's like." Dana gave her a kind look. "Thank her for me," she said, "and tell her her service matters, even if no one ever says it loud." The girl nodded quickly, eyes misting. They left the store, the sliding doors opening to the late afternoon sun. The sky outside had turned gold, sunlight spilling across the parking lot like a quiet applause. Lena felt the warmth hit her face and exhaled, a long, heavy breath that carried away the last of her humiliation. Dana walked beside her, her boots clicking softly on the pavement. Neither of them spoke for a while. There was too much to process, too much left unsaid. Finally, Lena broke the silence. "Mom, did I make it worse?" Dana looked at her, surprised. "Worse?" "By saying it. By telling her you were a commander. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Maybe none of that would have happened if I'd just stayed quiet. Dana stopped walking. She placed both hands gently on Lena's shoulders. Her eyes, strong, dark, and steady, met her daughter's trembling gaze. "Listen to me," she said softly. "You didn't make it worse. You made it right. You spoke the truth, and the truth never needs an apology." Lena hesitated, still uncertain, but he didn't believe me. "That's his failure," Dana said firmly. "Not yours. There will always be people who laugh before they listen. The trick is to keep talking anyway." Her words landed deep, like a seed buried in the heart. They kept walking, weaving between parked cars. Lena noticed people glancing their way, some smiling, some nodding in quiet respect. It felt strange, to be looked at not with pity but with admiration. Tara jogged beside them, breathless. "Mrs. Brooks," she said, wow. "Everyone was listening to you. Even the ones who didn't want to." Dana smiled. "That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need to shout, and it just needs to stand its ground." Tara grinned, glancing at Lena. "Your mom's awesome." Lena gave a small laugh, the first genuine laugh since the ordeal began. "Yeah, she kind of is." As they reached their car, Lena opened the door but paused, turning back to her mother. Her voice was small but steady. "Mom, does that kind of thing happen a lot?" Dana sighed, not out of exhaustion but out of honesty. "More than it should," she admitted. "Sometimes it's in words, sometimes it's in looks, and sometimes it's in laughter." "Then how do you deal with it?" Lena asked. Dana thought for a moment. "By remembering who I am," she said, "and by refusing to let anyone else rewrite that story for me." She looked down at her daughter. "That's what you did today. You reminded me of that." Lena's chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with pride. "I was scared, though," she admitted, like, really scared. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," Dana replied softly. "It's standing tall while fear tries to make you small." Lena nodded slowly. Those words, standing tall while fear tries to make you small, etched themselves into her memory like a vow. Tara shifted awkwardly. Captain Brooks?" "Yes, Tara?" "When you said intent doesn't erase impact," that was like, really deep, Dana smiled, shaking her head. "Maybe so. But it's true. We can't always control how people see us, but we can control what we stand for." She opened the car door and looked at both girls. "And the two of you? You stood for the truth today." Lena smiled, really smiled, the kind that starts in the heart and works its way out. "Thanks, Mom." "No," Dana said softly. "Thank you. You reminded me that the strongest voices sometimes come in the smallest sizes." The girls climbed into the car. Dana took one last look at the mall in the distance, the same building where humiliation had tried to take root, but pride had bloomed instead. As the engine started, Lena glanced at her reflection in the window. She no longer saw the girl who had been laughed at. She saw someone who had stood in the fire and stayed standing. The car rolled forward, sunlight stretching long shadows across the pavement. And in that moment, the lesson wasn't just theirs. It belonged to everyone who had witnessed it. The drive home was quiet at first. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean silence, it means thought. The hum of the road filled the car, and outside the window the golden light of evening spilled across the trees like calm after a storm. Lena sat in the passenger seat, staring at the fading horizon. Her fingers traced the edge of her seatbelt as if still grounding herself to the moment that had just changed her. She finally spoke. "Mom? Do you think people will ever stop doubting?" Dana kept her eyes on the road, the corners of her lips lifting just slightly. "No," she said honestly. "People doubt what they don't understand. They always have. But that doesn't mean truth stops being true." Lena thought about that for a long time. "So we just keep telling it." "Exactly," Dana said. "Because the more we tell the truth, the harder it becomes for the world to ignore it." They stopped at a red light. Dana turned her head, looking at her daughter, her brave, stubborn, trembling, magnificent daughter, and smiled softly. "You know, Lena," she said, "today wasn't about proving me right. It was about proving you right, about showing that your words matter even when people try to take their weight away." Lena blinked fast. "But I was crying," she said quietly. "I didn't feel brave." "That's the secret," Dana said. "Bravery doesn't always look strong. Sometimes it looks like tears that don't stop you. Sometimes it looks like standing still when you want to run. The light turned green. The car moved forward again, slow and steady. As they drove past rows of pine trees and strip malls, Lena's mind replayed the scene. Every cruel laugh, every stare, every word her mom had spoken. But what stayed the longest wasn't the humiliation. It was the silence that came after. That silence had been filled, not with shame, but with truth. "Mom," she said finally, "when you were talking to him." I could feel everyone listening, even the ones who didn't want to. "Why?" Dana smiled faintly. "Because truth has a sound, baby. It's quiet, but it carries farther than noise ever could." Lena let that sink in. The words felt like armor, light but unbreakable. They pulled into their driveway just as the sky turned lavender. The neighborhood was peaceful, the kind of peace that comes after storms that clean more than they destroy. Lena stepped out of the car and took a deep breath of the evening air. The smell of cut grass and faint jasmine mixed with the lingering adrenaline in her chest. Dana walked around to her side, her boots crunching softly on the gravel. "You okay?" she asked. Lena nodded. "Yeah, I just keep thinking about what you said to him." "That truth doesn't need permission," Dana smiled. "That's one of those things you learn the hard way. I had to remind him, and you of it today." Lena looked down for a second. "He looked scared, Mom, when you spoke, like he realized something." "He probably did," Dana said quietly. Maybe for the first time in a long time he heard the truth louder than his own voice. They reached the porch. The light flickered on automatically, bathing them in a soft amber glow. Lena sat on the steps while Dana leaned against the railing. The air was still, broken only by the sound of crickets starting their nightly chorus. "Mom? Yes? I think I get it now. When you said courage isn't about being loud, it's about standing tall." "That's right. I didn't feel tall in that store," Lena admitted. "But when you came, it was like I could breathe again." Dana sat beside her, resting a hand on her daughter's back. "That's what love does," she said. "It reminds us we're not standing alone." Lena looked up at the stars beginning to pierce the dusk. "I hope he remembers what you said. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. But everyone who watched and they'll remember. That's how change starts. Not with crowds, but with moments." For a while, neither spoke. The night deepened. The cicadas hummed. The world felt lighter somehow, as though justice itself had exhaled. Then Lena whispered something that made her mother smile. "I'm never going to be embarrassed again, about you, I mean." Dana chuckled softly. "I'd hope not. But even if you ever are, that's okay. What matters is that you never stop telling the truth." "I promise," Lena said. Dana leaned down and kissed the top of her head. The simplest and strongest gesture of all. "That's my girl." They went inside together, the door closing softly behind them. But in the quiet of that home, filled with medals, framed photos, and the scent of polished wood, something had changed. Lena felt different. She felt whole. For the first time since that laughter had filled the air, she realized that no one could take her truth away unless she gave it to them. And she never would again. The next morning, sunlight spilled across her bedroom floor. Her mom was already gone, back to duty, but her boots were still by the door, standing tall like silent sentinels of everything that had been said. Lena looked at them and smiled. Then she whispered the words that had carried her through the night. Truth doesn't need permission. She knew she'd remember that forever. That day, in a crowded store under blinding lights, a young girl had been laughed at for believing her mother was extraordinary. And then moments later, the world learned she was right. Some stories don't end with applause, and they end with understanding. And sometimes that's even louder, because respect costs nothing. But withholding it? That can cost someone everything.